Good evening. It is Friday, March 1st, 2013, and you are watching tonight's edition of The Front Cover. Tonight we have three topics of interest for you. We'll be joining Karen Ryder momentarily with a topic feature this evening on Jan Ertz, Matt Zellinger. We will also be conducting a personal interview, on Eduardo Sanchez, a migrant worker who says he owes his life and livelihood to Cesar Chavez. But first, we are going to turn your attention to Megan Hosworth, Megan with an H, as she talks in our correspondence newsroom on Marian Wright Edelman.
Thank you, Anthony. I'm here today with Megan with an H, and she is here to talk to us a little bit about Marian Wright Edelman. Megan, what is Marian best known for?
Well, she is best known for being the founder and president of the Children's Defense Fund, and she was also the first African American to pass the Mississippi State Bar.
How interesting. You mentioned the Children's Defense Fund. Can you explain to me a little bit more about that?
Yes. It is a nonprofit organization, as I said, founded by Marian Wright Edelman, and it advocates for children using special attention on children with needs, disabilities, poor children, and all the above.
That is wonderful. When exactly did Marian begin her career?
Around in the mid-60s, it was about 1963 when she became a staff attorney for the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. And in 1968, she founded the Washington Research Project of the Southern Center for Public Policy, which this also became the parent for the Children's Defense Fund.
Wow, she's been very busy. I've read before that she is on many college and foundation boards. Can you tell me a little bit about those?
Yes, it was about 1980 when she became the first black and second female to chair the board of trustees of Spelman College, which she graduated from. And this was from about 1976 to 1987. She was also the first woman to be elected by the Yale University Corporation, and she served from about 1971 to 1977. And she has been widely praised for all of her different distributions to funds and being on boards and whatnot. And she has over 100 different honorary awards, or degrees, and numerous awards. And in 2000, she was actually received the Presidential Medal of Freedom, which is the highest national civilian award.
Wow, she has achieved so much. In her lifetime, because she's been so busy, has she had an opportunity to start a family or anything?
Yes, she actually met her husband while working, and they married on July 14th, 1968, and his name is Peter Edelman. And a few years after, they actually had 3 sons, Joshua, Jonah, and Ezra.
Wow, well thank you, Megan, for being here with us today and letting us learn so much about Marian Wright Edelman.
Thank you.
Back to you, Anthony.
Thank you, Karen. Now we're going to go over to Megan with an H for a report from Eduardo Sanchez.
Thank you, Anthony. I'm here with Eduardo Sanchez. Who are you here to represent?
Well, I'm here to represent Cesar Chavez, a great man, migrant worker, and advocate for migrant workers.
What did this person do?
Well, he was born and raised just down the street from me, a few years before I was born, of course. In 1927, he was born in Yuma, Arizona. He grew up as a child at his ranch, working in the garden, and they had many workers at their place. However, a couple years into his life, the Great Depression struck, as we all know, in America, and he was forced to leave his farm with his family, and they had to go and be migrant workers themselves.
Wow. Can you please tell viewers, what is a migrant worker?
Absolutely. A migrant worker is a person that works the fields, works the land, growing crops, helping with all the farm duties, but instead of staying in one location, they move from place to place, depending on where there's work.
Thank you. Why was Caesar so passionate about migrant workers?
Well, being a migrant worker himself, he felt the need to bring equality to migrant workers. They just had some really unfair situations, like wages were lower for migrant workers. The hours, they worked a ton of hours with little to no breaks. And just the benefits, there were no benefits. Health was risky, and he just wanted to bring some equality to that kind of market.
That's a good person. Do you believe that Caesar succeeded in this movement?
I do, I firmly do, but it wasn't right away. See, he worked hard to form this movement. In 1962, actually, was when he formed the first union, the United Farm Workers. And about 10 years later, exactly, in 1972, he came together and formed, I'm sorry, I said that wrong. In 1962, it was the National Farm Workers Association. And then 10 years later, it merged and became the United Farm Workers. And it took a lot of hard work. He just didn't form these unions and everything went fine. There were boycotts on crops and on grapes especially. And then he also had a lot of hunger strikes, which unfortunately we believe led to his early death in 1993.
Wow. Thank you for that information,
You're
Eduardo.
welcome.
Back to you, Anthony.
Thank you, Megan with an H. And now we are going to go to our topic story for the evening, featuring Jane Ertz-Zellinger. I'll be doing the interview in just one moment after this break. We are back, and we are here with our friend Karen Ryder, and she has an interesting topic tonight for us on, help me with his name, Jan?
Ernst Matt Zelliger.
Okay, would you tell us a little bit about Mr. Matt Zelliger, please?
I would. Jan is best known for creating a shoe machine that completely revolutionized the way that shoes were made in the United States and the rest of the world.
Oh, very interesting. And what led Mr. Matt Zelliger to want to come up with such a shoemaking machine?
Well, before Matt Zelliger, hundreds of inventors had tried to make this shoe machine, but they could not make a machine that could create the final step of the shoemaking process. Matt Zelliger lived in Lynn, Massachusetts, where there were many shoe industries, and so he had heard of the problem. And because he was very good with machines, he decided to take on this challenge for himself, and for 10 years he worked tirelessly by himself with no motivation from others to create a shoe machine on his own.
That's very interesting. And what exactly was that final process?
Well, the final stage of the shoe making machine was shaping the upper leather called the last, shaping the upper leather of the shoe over the last.
Okay.
And attaching the leather together over the shoe, and it's called stymieing the shoe. It means tying them together, which is what the inventors before Matt Zelliger could not figure out how to do.
Very interesting. Now we have a question in from one of our write-in viewers tonight, and they say, prior to Mr. Matt Zelliger, they must have some history of shoe factories in New England. They said they believed about 40 to 50 pairs of shoes were produced each day. How did Mr. Matt Zelliger's machine revolutionize the New England Shoe Society?
Yes, you're right. Before Matt Zelliger created his machine, only expert hand lasters, which created the final process of the shoe, could make 40 or 50 shoes a day. After Matt Zelliger's invention, over 150 to 700 pairs of shoes were possible to be made each day.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow, I guess you could say that he revolutionized our walk in life.
He did.
Very interesting. Now, Karen, one last question before we have to go for the day. Our audience might be hearing of Mr. Matt Zellinger for the very first time right now. And I'm just wondering, why haven't we heard of him before this? I mean, the shoe industry, really, it's something we all need and we all use. How did we not hear about this?
Well, you are right. His machine is considered, to be one of the most important inventions in New England. But because he is African American, you are not hearing of him until recently.
Well, he worked hard, and we're glad he didn't give up in defeat. Well, that's all we have for tonight of the front cover, folks. Thank you for joining us. Have a good evening, and don't forget to floss.